what I found, and I think people will understand pretty quickly here, is let's say you're building a business to create cash flow, is that comes with some very, very different decisions than what would happen if you're building a business to sell. So for example, right, if you're building a business for cash flow, you might be okay with the business relying on you and you being the face and the brand of it. So think of like Michael Jordan. He's the face of his own brand. Now, on the other side of things, if you're building a business to sell and you're the face of it, that's not the greatest idea, because when you sell that business, you are likely signing yourself up to be what's known as the golden handcuffs, where you will have to go into that business or become an employee of that business to sell it so that it actually functions in the same way. And like coaching businesses and consulting businesses and education businesses are mostly prone to that one. Where on the other side of things, if you look at software, which I think is the great like polar opposite in this thing here, software businesses, like they don't require the person to be the face of it in the same way. Yep. It's the software itself that carries the value of that business. Now, again, it's like this is where I just want people to really look at it. There's no right or wrong answer. And there's software businesses out there like ClickFunnels where Russell Brunson being the face of it is hugely important, right? But it's like I just want people to see that it's likely if they haven't thought about the purpose of their business or take it seriously, they're very, very likely trying to chase one or many or even all of these things at the same time. And then it causes them to get just a really shitty result overall, or poor quality result. If you're trying to do all four of these, you're doing all four of them badly.
And chasing 4 rabbits at one time.
Yeah, and I give people an analogy. I used to ride quite a lot of bikes and do a lot of cycling. And there is like road bikes and there's mountain bikes and there's these things called hybrid bikes. And do you know what a hybrid bike is?
The best of both. Well, the worst of both.
Yeah, it is. It's not a good enough road bike where you can ride it on the road and be competitive. And it's not a good enough mountain bike where you can take advantage of things like suspension and setup. Yep. So all it does is it's not like you get the best of both worlds. You get the worst. You're slow and terrible at both of these sports, where if someone was to truly focus on one of these and have their decision-making form around that, the likelihood of them ending up with a really successful business and a really successful wealth strategy significantly increase.
Yeah. And I find it interesting because I've personally gone through this, and as we outlined these 4 kind of key areas, I think I've jumped between every single one through like no order or no decision. So when I first started my business, it was because I'm like, well, I know I can make more because I'm a smart guy than working in a job. So that's what I did. So it was more about just an income replacement. So it was more cash flow than anything else. And then I'm like, now I want to live overseas. So I went and moved and did, guess what? A lifestyle business of going, great, how can I read books and hang on the beach and do all these things? And only upon reflection do I realize that this is kind of what I was doing. That at the time, it was just nothing of just going, well, this is exactly what I want to achieve. It. Then from the lifestyle business, I'm like, well, I'm not feeling fulfilled anymore. So then I went for what I call the legacy play, which is kind of, think of it like a bit of an impact.
That is impact.
Yeah. And so then I jumped into a big SaaS. And then I realized that the legacy play at the age that I was at was not going to give me what I wanted. So I said, well, I'm going to go for the sell. And so then I punched forwards in this software business to go and sell it this one day. And then I'm like, well, now I want cash flow. And well, I couldn't take cash flow out of this business that had a whole heap of investors and a whole heap of other shareholders. And I'm like, well, now what do I do? And then that's when I had to go to another business model. And so all of these steps of the way that I was actually taken through was, you never guess what, Charlie? School of hard knocks. By taking the lessons, where if actual fact, if I actually looked at what I wanted to do in my wealth creation, all the way back at the start, I could have defined the purpose of the businesses that I was running in order to support the outcomes that I was going for.
So you just bring up a really good point there. You brought up a few. I want to unpack these a little bit. So number one is that I have observed in myself and heard your story here and seen it in others, that what tends to happen is people jump between these because they end up hating the outcome of one of them. So maybe they're really really big on cash, and but then they're like, their time ends up having no time. And then they go, well, now I want a lifestyle business. I want my time back. And then they realize, well, I can't sell this because I'm the face of it. And then they go, oh, I want to build something to sell. And then it's like they want to change the world, or like the order can change, but you see people dance between these camps, not intentionally. Like there's not an intention behind it. And it, as I said, is like, imagine you spent 5 years building a cash flow business. then you decide you want to sell it. Well, you've just spent 5 years making the wrong decisions to get to that outcome if that was there, where if you were more intentful. And I think this is a big reason why a lot of business owners will close their first business and start something new, is they get this perspective at some point and become more intentional. Like I believe with Focus, you actually set out from day one to sell it. It's not a cash flow business. You guys have been pretty pure on that. The other thing you said there that was really interesting to me is that, my belief is that your Wells, it's just another business. Like I have 2 businesses. I have my active business, which is the media company and what we do at Full Stack. And then the other business I have is my wealth business, right? And they can have different goals, right? They can. You don't have to have the same goals. And you can actually play one of the strengths of one into the weakness of the other and have a hugely different result. Hugely different. So if you're the face of a brand, like maybe you've got a coaching business and you're like, I don't have anything sellable. If I stop working, then the income stops. Well, you go, cool. Well, on the other side, in my wealth business, I'm going to buy assets that don't need me.
Exactly. This is what not enough people talk about this, is that you don't have to play these games within just the business context. You could totally play both sides of the fence.
Completely. I'll give another one here. Pretend you've got a really boring business where you've got a whole bunch of high quality lifestyle. Like maybe you've got a SaaS and the software runs itself and it's not as needed on your time. You've put employees in and you're at that stage.
I know the guy. Yes.
Yeah, it happens. I know a lot of people would be envious of that guy, but it happens. Well, maybe for you, if you want to get a bit more active and things that need you, well, you could do property development.
That's exactly what
that's going to need you.
That's what he's talking to me about, property, because he's like, maybe I just want to try this thing. And I'm like, what about the business? Like, it's completely fine. He's like, I just want to see what it looks like. And he's like, the business will continue crushing. He's like, I just want to try and build something and create something. And I'm like, interesting. You kind of get this. But to that point, I could guarantee you that in his mind, it is not as clear cut as we're walking around talking about right now.
Because we're not having these conversations. We've got to bring it to people's mind. And I love Harry Triguboff, which is a property developer, where his thing now is like he's building buildings that will last past his lifetime. He's getting quite old. Like he's doing it as legacy or impact. He's like, no. And I think he did, is it the Q1 or QVC or something, whatever the big
Gold
building
Coast.
Is in Gold Coast?
Yes,
like that's one of his. So like that will stand for generations past his time. So to think you can't have all of these goals or these, I suppose, purposes within each of your businesses is, I just think, a thing that people really have to consider, because you can absolutely do it.
Yeah, I find it interesting that it's a concept that not a lot of people allude to, and I'm curious. Like, in your opinion, Charlie, are there points where people will naturally try and change to something? Like, is this a seasonality or is this a deliberate thing? So, for example, in a business, if you start out saying, well, I want to create cash flow, can I then pivot that business into a sell after a period of time? Like, is there the ability for someone to go, I'm going to consciously change this? Or is it like you just need to understand what goal you're going to hit and what your goal you're going for, and just run in that direction until you achieve it? Or is this malleable? Like, can I bounce between them?
I think anything's changeable, right? Like, you might be listening to this podcast today and realize that, I haven't thought about this and I want to shift it. I would just think that I would love people to think through it, the impacts of these things, because changing or undoing it can be very, very time consuming. And the really common one that I would see these days is like the barrier to entry on starting like a digital agency or a coaching or consulting or education business is incredibly low. And that's why it attracts a lot of people.
So many people.
Yeah. And then I think a lot of them end up burnt out. So they build something where they're actually the technician in the business and the business owner. And then as they grow and scale, they get really, really burnt out. And then the change they're looking to make actually comes from pain.
Yes.
But instead of fixing the coaching business or consulting business or the agency, like, because all of those businesses can be built in a way that doesn't require a person and are sellable, but the tendency for them is to then shift their view into either starting a new business or trying to work out how to make what they've got sellable. And it's like you would probably do it differently if you thought of it again.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all,
and you want to dive deeper into being a full stack business owner, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.